Hey everybody, this is Anthony from VR Game Rankings. Welcome to another episode of the Daily Vlog series. It, of course, is Monday, December 4th, and this is episode 45. All right, first thing I want to say is on Friday's episode, if you guys saw Friday's episode, I was joking early on in the show about it being a train wreck. And little did I know that it actually was a bit of a train wreck. For those that watched the entire video, if you got halfway through, you might have noticed that Doom VFR footage popped up full screen 3 different times during that episode. That was not supposed to happen. That was an error on my part, and I didn't notice this actually until Sunday. I was watching a tiny bit of it on Sunday, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot to edit that. Because what happens is when you're editing videos, when you're adding videos to it, what you have to do is you have to like resize the video and put it where you want to put it. And somehow I didn't do that with that Doom VFR footage. I was going to do it, and I forgot to go back and do it. And it showed up 3 different times, and man, it was just a cluster. You know what, and it's funny because I was talking about how it was going to be a train wreck, but I was really joking. I wasn't actually serious about that. But then, of course, that happened. So I guess you got to watch what you joke about. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get into some news and we'll see what's going on here. Okay, so the first news story I have is LA Noire has been confirmed for December 15th. And I know this is a little bit of an older news story now. I'm not sure if this hit later on Friday or if it was Saturday when we got this information. But yeah, LA Noire originally was going to arrive on November 14th for the HTC Vive, but it was delayed till sometime in December. But we didn't get a date. We didn't know when in December it was going to actually hit. Well, we have now found out that it is arriving on December 15th. Now, this game is a $29.99 game, and the thing about it is this is going to now arrive 3 days after Fallout 4 VR, and there's also some concern here as to a lot of people are wondering, is this going to be another problem for Oculus Rift gamers? Because Rockstar, in their announcement of this game, they've made no mention whatsoever of the Oculus Rift. And I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if like Take-Two has some kind of issue with Oculus or something. I'm not sure why it's not going to be actually on the Oculus store. I don't know. But so we had the Doom VFR thing, obviously, and we're wondering what's going to happen with Fallout 4 VR. And here is another game, LA Noire, where we're not really sure if this is going to work out of the box for the Oculus Rift or not. And if it does work for the Oculus Rift, are the controls going to be kind of jacked up and not dialed in very good? So that is something that we'll have to figure out. The other big question with this is, with this coming 3 days after Fallout 4 VR, will anybody give a damn? Because as we've seen on the PlayStation VR subreddit, once Skyrim arrived, every other game might as well just get the hell out of the way. I think it was a good idea what the Inpatient did. It moved to January 24th. That was a smart move because it would have absolutely been buried under a Skyrim pile. And all anybody talks about is Skyrim VR, and it's a big, meaty game. You can play it for hours and hours and hours. Well, Fallout 4 is exactly the same way. So 3 days later, is anybody going to give a damn about LA Noire? That is a question. But, we'll have to see. I mean, this is a lower price game. The entire game is not available in VR. It's a certain number of missions that you'll be able to play in VR. And I'm really looking forward to this personally because I just think the world of LA Noire is a cool, interesting world. I like the 1940s aesthetic of it, Los Angeles back in the days, and just the detective thing. I think a lot of it could work really well in VR. I heard the fist fights are really cool in VR. The other thing is when LA Noire hit on regular consoles back when it first came out, this was one that I just missed. There's a handful of games that for whatever reason miss me. And LA Noire was one of them. Never played it back in the days. So being able to play this in VR is exciting for me for several different reasons, just because never played the game. So it'll be cool to play it, experience it in VR. I know it's not the whole game, but I'll still probably have a ton of fun with that. So that is LA Noire, December 15th. Okay, the second story I have, this is also slightly old, but we didn't cover it yet. Valve is still committed to VR. 3 full games are still coming. Okay, so Rolling Stone talked with Dan O'Brien, who is the Vive general manager to the Americas, and he basically confirmed to Rolling Stone that Valve is still extremely committed to VR, and that those 3 full games that they promised, they are still coming. I actually have a quote here from the Rolling Stone article. He says, "I manage the relationship with Valve," O'Brien says. "I meet with Valve weekly to talk about everything from what's happening on new content launching to new product launches to new features and new functions. They are very committed. They are still committed to delivering on that promise." And so I'm not sure how the question came about as to why they wouldn't be committed. I don't know why this is being brought up. It might have something to do with CCP Games backing out of VR, and there was a little bit of concern earlier in last month, basically, when all of that happened, and it kind of turned into this sour thing that was going on in PC VR, where we're starting to wonder, has the bubble burst on VR? So maybe that's what they're talking about. But yeah, you know, whatever happened to these 3 full games? I can remember, I think it was back in February of this year when we found out about these 3 full games. And on the VR Roundtable podcast, I made the suggestion that it's possible that one of these 3 games would launch later this year and the other 2 would be sometime next year. Well, we're now in December. It's December 4th, and I don't know that there is an imminent launch for any of these 3 games from Valve. I would probably say no, that there isn't going to be one. But of course, when it comes to Valve, I don't think we're going to have any kind of warning. I think the game is just going to bam, it's just going to come out and people are just going to go ape shit. It's going to be crazy. But I don't think we're going to get any kind of a warning. So it could come out later this year. That's possible. But with Fallout 4 VR, with LA Noire and all this other stuff, they might look for a slightly quieter time to drop their first game, although Valve probably doesn't give a damn, really. But yeah, so those 3 games are still coming. And this is huge because I do believe that a lot of these AAA developers are going to maybe back away from some of this VR stuff for a little while, just because the sales, we've seen sales of games like Heart of the Emberstone and the Serious Sam game, just not a tremendous amount of sales for all the work and money that's been put into it. So there could be a bit of a backing away from some VR production from some of these bigger companies. So the fact that Valve could have 3 major primetime releases, that could really pump up the VR industry in general. And so it's great that they have those in reserve and they can bring those out at a future point in time. So Valve is still very committed to VR. We know, of course, they're still developing those Knuckles controllers, and these 3 games are using the Knuckles controllers the way we understand it. Valve has said that they're kind of developing the Knuckles at the same time as they're developing these new games, much in the way that Nintendo does that. Nintendo will come out with a brand new system that will feature some new type of control design, and at the same exact time they'll be developing new games that take advantage of this new control. And that's kind of what Valve is doing here. So we're still waiting for the whole Knuckles thing as well. I'm looking forward personally to the January CES in Las Vegas because I'm hopeful, and now this might be wishful thinking on my part, but I'm actually hopeful that a new SteamVR headset will be announced at the January CES, possibly from LG, possibly from some other company that we don't know about. and that Knuckles will be featured as part of it, and Knuckles will be in the box. I'm really hoping that that happens, and so maybe we'll get a glimpse of one of these Valve games there. I mean, that's a possibility. Okay, so the next story we want to get into is Rift Core 2.0 beta arrives on Wednesday. Yeah, so we found out about this. Now, this goes back to the fact that when the Oculus Rift first shipped, we have to remember, I mean, it's been a long time, and it seems like Oculus has had the touch controllers forever, but it isn't true. They haven't had these touch controllers forever. In fact, this Rift Core 2.0 beta is arriving on the 1-year anniversary of the arrival of the Oculus touch controllers. And so there was a whole, almost an entire year really, where Oculus just had the Xbox controller and they had that little remote. Now, neither the Xbox controller nor the remote was a tracked controller. So the entire UI design of Oculus, the Oculus Home, when you first launch into it in your headset, all of that was kind of designed around the fact that it was a controller and it wasn't tracked. And so Rift Core 2.0 is this whole new thing where now they feel that probably like 99% of their user base has touch controllers. And so now they're going to take full advantage of it. And that's going to give us Dash. It's going to give us the new Oculus Home. The Oculus Store where you buy your games is going to be completely revamped. There's going to be wish lists, all kinds of things, different backgrounds. You're going to be able to teleport around your Oculus Home. There's a lot of cool stuff that's coming. I honestly don't have a ton of information on this. I haven't really got into this. One of the things that I have to say now, first of all, obviously I'm not a millennial. And so when I play VR games, I can go ahead and hop into the VR experience, and I really don't need to have other things going on simultaneously. I'm an immersion whore, basically. I want the immersion. I want to be completely immersed in something. And if I'm in a VR game and I have like a YouTube window running over here and I have like some browser running over there, it's not going to immerse me in the game very much. So I don't really get into that. So I'm not as excited about some of this stuff as a lot of other people are. I have said, however, though, that I am excited to see what happens with the Oculus Store, because I'm not a big fan of the Oculus Store. Like, sometimes you want to just go and see, well, what are the newest games that have been released, and you want to see like what date they've come out or things like that. You don't get that information right now on the Oculus Store. So I'm kind of hoping for a major revamp there. And Dash, and being in home, I will say, you know, when you're in home and you're looking around and you see that fireplace over there that's crackling, you do feel like, hey, I want to teleport over there. I want to teleport over there. And you can't. You're stuck in one spot. And so this will, of course, change that. That's kind of cool. There's a lot of other little things that are coming into this as well. So it will be kind of exciting. You have to opt into the beta to be able to get this. But this is coming Wednesday. So we are going to see this. Now, it does require Windows 10. And it is a performance thing, so you will need to have Windows 10 to be able to get this. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that on Wednesday. We'll have to see how that works out. Okay, another story I have is, so I've said before that before I got into VR gaming, I was actually what would be considered a retro gamer. I had a PlayStation 4, had an Xbox One, was your normal modern day gamer, was playing brand new games on PlayStation 4, brand new games on Xbox One, but I just started to get bored of it. You know, it just didn't seem like there was a major advance with these new systems. Each time new consoles come out, I'm always hoping for, like, I want to be blown away. You know, I want to see an experience where it's like, oh my God, that looks so incredible. They never could have did that on the Xbox 360. They never could have did that on the PlayStation 3. Well, I didn't really get that with the Xbox One or PlayStation 4. It was just prettier. It was the same games, a little bit prettier, a little bit cleaner, but nothing groundbreaking, nothing that just, other than Shadows of Mordor, where they had the Nemesis system, other than that, I really didn't notice anything that maybe couldn't have been done on the Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3. So I got bored of modern gaming, and I actually got into retro gaming, and I started playing Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis and all these old classic games from from back in the early 90s, okay? And so then when I found out about VR, what happened is I found out about this room scale concept. That's what really got me into VR. The idea that you would have this like volumetric cube in your room where it would just be filled with VR and you could walk around and you could interact like you're really in like a poor man's holodeck. That's what I call it many times, is I say that it's kind of a poor man's holodeck. Not quite where we want it to be, but it has a little bit of that. And that's what got me excited about VR, a whole new opportunity. And I jumped into VR, and when I first got it, I was like, yeah, this is the dream that I've been dreaming of. Finally, something that actually blows me away, where the new consoles didn't do that for me. I didn't get that hype. But I used to be a retro gamer, so what am I talking about this crap for? I'm talking about it because trailers have been released for a new emulator called MuVR. Now, we don't know exactly when this emulator is coming, but if you've seen these trailers, this does look super cool. So I'll go ahead and read off a number of features that this emulator is going to offer. So you can automatically search your ROM folders for games and matching label images. And then you can have virtual cartridges and CDs with labels that will just spawn into your room. You could have multiple virtual game consoles. You could have arcades, multiple screens, CRT, LCD, a cinema screen. You can look closer and see the pixels. Now, this is the coolest part of this whole entire thing. And they do have a trailer, and they show you on the trailer, they show a CRT monitor running like Super Mario World or something, right? And then they get closer and closer to the screen, and you actually see individual red, blue, and green pixels. I mean, it looks really cool. It looks really amazing. You'll be able to watch 80s and 90s TV. You'll be able to stream it on other TVs. You'll be able to read tons of video game magazines. You'll be able to organize all your games your way, or disorganize it and just have them thrown all over the place. You can customize your room with posters on the wall with any image you want. Run as many simultaneous games as your hardware can handle. And they show this in the trailer. They're running like 40 different games at the same time. And each game has its own music, and it just sounds freaking bonkers when you see this trailer. But this looks really cool, and it's going to be free. Now, we have new Retro Arcade Neon, of course, where it's like an arcade that you can go into, and that is really cool, but it's not free. They're charging money for that, and this one is completely free, so you can go ahead and download this. Now, it's not available yet, but if you check out the trailer, it looks really cool. And as a person that was into retro gaming previously to jumping into VR, this is something I would like to check out. However, I do have to say that one of the downsides of any of this type of stuff is when you wear a headset. Now this is kind of my Debbie Downer thing, and this kind of goes to third-person gaming as well. Games like Bloody Zombies and Chronos and Edge of Nowhere and stuff like that. One of the downsides to these current VR headsets is I believe that when you wear one of these headsets, when you come out of the experience, you're a little bit drained, okay? And it's been my experience. You're a little bit drained. It takes you a little while to kind of settle back into regular reality. You might have just the tiniest of a mild headache, a little bit, just kind of worn out, you know, a little bit of eye strain and those kinds of things. And we're just not there with these headsets yet. Now, I do believe that we're going to get there. And I know that there's some of you that are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I play for 5 hours at a time. Everything's fine. Okay, great. I'm happy for you. It doesn't work like that for me, okay? And so what am I getting at here? Well, what I'm getting at is I'm willing to deal with all that eye strain and the wear and just kind of the general that you kind of feel after you've been playing for a while. I'm willing to deal with that when I'm in a high-powered VR experience that puts me into the game, and it's like you're surrounded by the game and you're in a different world and you're really captured by it. Now, I'll play something like Lucky's Tale, and I'll play Bloody Zombies, and I'll play Witchblood, and I'll play some of these side-scrolling or third-person type games, but I don't know that I want to spend hours in there, okay? And so when you look at something like this emulator, like if you were to really get into it, you'd want to be in there playing these games for long times, and I just don't think we're quite there yet with these headsets from a comfort standpoint, an eye strain standpoint. Now, the one good thing about it is you can emulate a CRT, a cathode ray tube. You can emulate that in VR, and it looks freaking real good. I mean, we've seen this with new Retro Arcade Neon. I mean, that emulation looks damn good. And the reason it does is because the resolution for a lot of this old school retro stuff, the resolution is so low that they can basically match that resolution in VR and make it virtually identical to the real experience. So that is the one cool thing that VR can do, even with the lower resolutions that we have right now, is you can make a CRT television look relatively real. We've seen this, of course, with Duck Season. Anybody that's played Duck Season, you see these commercials that show up on the TV, and all of that looks really good, and it's a really good simulation. So that will be interesting, but I just don't know that I'm going to want to throw on a headset and play Super Mario World for 2 hours. You know, I love Super Mario World, but I just don't know that I want to have that headset on me for that length of time. But still, this is cool regardless of all of that. This is super cool, and any retro gamers out there are really going to want to get into this. You can do net code as well. You can play with other people. So imagine playing a 2-player game of Streets of Rage for the Sega Genesis with your buddy that lives in Orlando, Florida, you know, and you're meeting in the same virtual room, and you're kind of passing a virtual controller back and forth, or, I mean, you're playing against each other in Streets of Rage or Street Fighter 2 or whatever it is. So that's really cool. So this emulator does look pretty sweet, and I definitely will try it when it comes out, but it's been my experience with these kinds of things that I'll go in, I'll try it out, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that is really cool, but I won't actually use it on a regular basis, okay? Okay, so the last story that I have today is that the HTC Vive has actually increased its lead over the Oculus Rift in the most recent Steam survey, which I found rather surprising. So the Vive is holding a 48.76% of VR usage compared to the Rift, which is 47.61%. So I mean, this is like neck and neck. It's amazing how close these two headsets are to each other from a SteamVR usage standpoint. Now, honestly, I thought Rift would way jump ahead of the Vive, and mainly because of the Summer of Rift promotion, you know, $350 and all of that sort of thing. And so I thought the Rift would jump way the hell ahead, but Vive is actually holding on, and that's pretty impressive. Now, there could be a handful of Oculus Rift owners, more of your average Joe Blow type consumer that would go to Best Buy and they would buy an Oculus Rift and get it all set up, and maybe they're just not aware of Steam. I mean, it's hard to imagine that. It's really hard to even think about that, but I'm sure there has to be a percentage of Oculus Rift owners that don't bother with Steam or don't participate in this type of survey. So that could skew the numbers a little bit, but it's still impressive that Vive is holding its own here, because I don't think it's a good idea if like Rift just blows the Vive out of the water. I think it's great that we have this neck and neck race between the two. Let me go to the website. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, so yeah, it's 49.5% for the Vive, 46.03% for the Rift. I was trying to see if there's any more information on this story. Not really. So yeah, but I mean, it's good that they're neck and neck, and they're, you know, competing with each other pretty well. From a pricing standpoint, obviously there's a big gap there, but it looks like as far as SteamVR usage, it's holding pretty well. So that looks good. The only other thing I wanted to talk about real quick is I have finally updated the new rankings, the top 100 and the top 200 for both the HTC Vive and Oculus Rift at vrgamerankings.com. So you can go to the website, you can check it out. The rankings have been updated, and there have been some surprising results. Talos Principle has launched itself into the top 20. From Other Suns on the Oculus Rift side is all the way up at number 12. It debuted at 12 overall. Carnage Chronicles jumped into, I believe, the top 20 on the HTC Vive ranking. And there's a number of new games like Spark that have jumped into the rankings, Super Hypercube, some stuff like that. So if you haven't checked out the rankings in a while, because the rankings weren't updated since like October 24th. So the rankings were old for a while there, and they were supposed to be updated in late November, but I waited a little bit longer to get more submissions to tally it up and have a little bit better of rankings, also be able to include more of the newer games. I still have to do PlayStation VR. That's actually something I'm going to be working on right after this show is over. I have to tabulate all that information and update the top 100 PlayStation VR rankings. So all of that is on the website. So if you want to see the newest rankings, go ahead and check that out. I'm really happy for Zing The Land Beyond, which is ranked quite high. I'm surprised at how high people are ranking this on their own top 20 lists, their top 10 lists that we get at vrgamerankings.com. I didn't know that. I mean, I love Zing The Land Beyond. I think it's incredible. I think it's probably one of the better VR games we've gotten this entire year, but I'm surprised that so many other people also seem to like it as well. So that is really cool. So definitely go check out those rankings if you haven't checked them out in a while. And that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for episode 45. Of course, today is Monday, December 4th, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take it easy. Later.